Today I'm gonna try and paint this. What up friends, Liron here. Thank you for joining me in another video. Today we're gonna have a painting and drawing tutorial of the same drawing that I showed you, just the process of the initial sketch I did as a preparation. So now we're gonna make the full painting and I will attempt to paint it. And the reason why I would attempt to paint it is that I'm really not sure if I'm pleased with the result. It was one of those things, and I'm recording it after making the painting. It's one of those things where nothing really worked for me the way I wanted to, but somehow just by sheer experience I was able to make something out of it. And so this really goes to show you that even if you things just don't work, as long as you keep your cool and you adapt to what's going on paper, you can salvage many paintings, okay, and make something of them. Maybe not the best, maybe not the most amazing one, but you'll learn a lot. So at some point after the initial wash, or in the middle of the initial wash, I kind of lost it, and it just helped me. It released any inhibitions I had, because I was like, okay, it's doomed, and I was able to work very freely and experiment and try some things I don't usually do. Okay, so I think it's a good opportunity to show you that. And so without further ado, let's jump to the drawing and painting process. Okay friends, so I'm starting with the drawing, and I just want to apologize because I know this video is hugely delayed. It's kind of my fault. Well, I basically landed today back in Israel. I didn't really have the chance to update you on that, so sorry about that. But in any case, yes, the work on this one got delayed, and I just kind of had a flight to take. So anyway, yeah, let's get to business here. Starting out, as always, by dividing the canvas into the two most obvious shapes. In this case, we have the sort of fake horizon, which is just the trees blocking our view. So we have the sky and the trees, which is the lower 2/3. And now I'm trying to find the line for the ground. The reason why is because it will help me place all the little houses on that line. Okay. So the lines that you see me doing right now, drawing right now, is actually to indicate for myself where the houses are gonna be. So there's 3 lines right now that indicate the leftmost part of the major house there, the major structure. That's the center of attention. Then we have a center and the right side, just strengthening some of the things here. And on the rightmost side we have that small cabin that I kind of struggled with. It's interesting because I'm happy to have it in the drawing and painting, because it's more in the foreground, and so it just provides some contrast, and it will allow me to put more work into the foreground, because I've been receiving a lot of feedback about my foregrounds that need more work, and I'm really aware of it. So hopefully this will help. So anyway, yeah, just putting in all those shapes, representing where the houses are gonna be. This is when you build the composition. If you notice, I'm not sure it's really obvious here, but my paper is a little more landscape oriented than the picture. The picture is it's not square, but it's squashed rectangle. So it's closer to square, and so I just need to plan things out more carefully, because I just have more room towards the sides. So this really, especially if you're not sure where everything is going to fit, it's better to do this very initial just hints and clues and guidelines for yourself to know where you're going to put everything. So anyway, now I'm working on that main structure, the main center of attention, the main point of interest here in the mid-ground, I guess, because we have that small thing in the foreground. We have some trees obstructing it, which create an interesting contrast. Well, not really actually, because it's on the shaded side of the house. But anyway, yeah. Now I'm drawing that building on the left, to the left of the main point of attention. Now the reason why I painted, because I thought about it a lot, and I wasn't sure if I was going to leave it or leave it out. But I decided to still put it because it will create a nice contrast with the left side of that big structure, which is in shadow, and the roof is well lit, so you get a nice contrast there. Now onwards, I skip the building in the background and move on to the building right next to it because it obscures some of that. So I wanted to just to be able to finish with that and then draw the other one in the background. Okay, so yeah, now getting in a tree, but very basic indication of just a fan shape kind of. I'm really careful not to put in too many details, and I will add a bit more, but I'm really being careful not to add too much, because I find that if I would now draw every branch, I would be tempted to then with my brush actually go over each and every branch, and the result is not going to be good if I do that from the way I know myself. So in order to not get tempted, I make it as minimal as possible, as few details as possible. Okay. By the way, it's funny, I'm literally after like 12 hours of process of getting here back to Israel. I took a metro, and then I took a RER, which is another train, to the airport, and then from the airport, I flew here. So it was a long way. I left the apartment at around 7 in the morning and got here to my house in like 7 in the evening. So it's interesting, with a time difference, so it's a little over 7 hours. Yeah, anyway, I didn't get to blog too much about leaving Paris, so sorry about that. Now back to the drawing. We have here finally the small cabin or building more in the foreground. The thing with this one actually is that now that I look at it, I see how I could have pulled it off much better, and I see some of the inaccuracies that I have here. I just could have used it better as a tool to convey the depth. But anyway, yeah, I will learn from that. And I actually have a few other pictures from that very same village. And what's good about that is that I can draw a painting that has a similar color scheme, but is a little more, but is new for me. Okay, because I get really bored if I just paint the same scene. Now, I think I am mature enough to draw the same scene and paint it again right now. It wasn't the case a short while ago, maybe a month ago, but now I think when I know myself, maybe I won't get as bored as in the past. But anyway, in any case, I have pictures from other angles, and so this will allow me to, if necessary, draw that very same scene, same color scheme, same buildings, but just from a slightly different angle, or a very different angle. I have quite a few, which will then add some interest for me in it as well. Okay. So basically the drawing is almost done. The thing that I do need to add now is the windows and all the details, some details on the roof. On the roofs, on all of them, mainly on that central building here. And I'm trying here to draw the shapes as I see them. So when I approach drawing those chimneys, I actually draw the shadows as I see them, okay? And you will see that in a moment. Just threw in an indication of a shadow because there is a shadow on the ground, because there is a tree in the foreground, in the very closest foreground. Anyway, so I'm putting in the chimney. You can see one line, then another for the top, another for the right side, close it off. But what I'm drawing right now diagonally is actually the shadow. And you see I just connect it. All of this area is going to be in shadow. Sometimes it's very effective to just draw and paint the shapes you see. And I started repeating this lately, so sorry about that. But just draw it as you see it and not as the object that it is, okay? So yeah, some details on the roof, some windows. I love when there's windows on the roof. It lets some more sun come in, and it's just beautiful. I'm throwing in some indication of windows on that left side of the building. The reason I don't put in too much is because it's going to be in the shadow, and things in the shadow are much less clear. And they will barely be felt, I think. But for this side that I'm working on right now, it's going to be dead in the light, and it's going to have strong contrasts, strong whites and blacks. So it's something that I want to make sure I get in there properly. I'm not really concerning myself too much with the accuracy, as you can see, but it's good enough for me to know how to paint them accurately, so I did allow myself that. Yeah, so some of the windows, and this whole sort of windows and shades are going to be painted using a different color that's not a part of the primary. So I will use, and you will see that in a moment, I will use the ultramarine, magenta, and chromium yellow. But for that specific structure, I'm going to use cerulean blue. And the reason why is that I do want to make it pop a little, because in the reference as well it pops. The roof I'm working on right now, I'm going to royally mess up when I put in that first wash. Well, you know, sometimes you can't avoid it. By the way, I'm all positive about this drawing, but you will see in a moment, this is just an accident after an accident. This whole painting was composed of happy mistakes, happy accidents, really, because I just wasn't on top of my game. Like, literally, I have no other explanation for that. I just wasn't good. I made a lot of mistakes. I wasn't, I guess, focused enough, or I just messed up, you know, unintentionally. I don't know. I felt like I was really focused, but I guess it wasn't enough for that particular attempt. Yeah, but definitely takes some work. Anyway, you just saw me quickly putting in those branches on the right. And now I'm using just pure ultramarine. I'm not mixing it with anything, and the reason why is because I want towards the bottom. In the reference image, you see towards the bottom it lights up, it becomes white. But what I will do is, towards the really bottom, I'm going to add a little bit magenta, maybe to get a bit of, I don't know if sunset, but just to give it some more interest, I guess. So I'm thoroughly covering that first part of the first wash to make sure there's a strong bead and that I won't get weird sort of weird shapes or lines or streaks in the wash, because a few of my recent washes had a lot of streaks in them. But anyway, what you saw me do just now, I dip in the water, go back into the palette. Dip in the water, go back into the palette, and this lights up the wash. So you can see it really lights up near the bottom. And then I'm putting in a little magenta into the mixture, and I'm going to use that for the bottom part. Just going to make it a little more reddish, just to create some interest in the sky. I felt it would balance things out. Now, the thing is that I'm going over this bottom part again, because for this part I want to do it wet and wet. So I mixed, and I cut out some of the mixing because it's not that interesting. So I mixed here ultramarine and chromium yellow, and I'm putting it in while the initial wash is still wet. Now here's one major mistake I made. I should have waited maybe a minute or two more. And the thing is, I knew it, but for some reason I kind of just did it. Because what you see right now is I'm putting paint, it's wet and wet, but the wet that I put the paint into is super wet. So what happens is that the color diffuses too much into the wet area, and you get really not a lot of control, and worse than that, it even pushes what was there earlier, which is why you will see it more as it dries up. By the way, a really challenging angle, really struggled with this wash, but you will see more as it dries up a bit. You will see how this wash is definitely not what it could have been. I don't have a good explanation for what went on in my mind. What went through my mind? Yeah, what went through my mind when I made this mistake, or just generally speaking, this wash could have been so much better, but it just happened. And I think this painting is really a lesson in how you can still persevere and pull a painting together. And this is really what I've done here. I'm continuing, even though at this point it may not look like this to you, but I feel like the painting is gone. I lost it. This is what I feel right now. I remember this very vividly. I felt like it's done. You see, I messed up with the roof as well. Really felt like I'm not on the right track, and it can happen from time to time. But I decided not to give up, because it's just an opportunity, you know. If you know that nothing brilliant is gonna come out of it, it's just an opportunity to ease up, relax, and know that it's not that terrible if it's not gonna be that good. Now, another thing is, it's not easy to correct mistakes, but it is easy to glaze on them and make them less visible. So even though this first wash is really uneven, it's okay, because when I come back with a second wash on top of that, it will make some of the mistakes less obvious. Okay, so now I'm mixing some, basically the same mixture. So I have the ultramarine and chromium yellow, only this time the yellow is much more dominant. Okay, as you can see, the yellow is much stronger here, and it's meant to warm it up a bit, because the grass felt to me a little warmer, and it's closer to us, so it's better to warm it to give off the feeling that that it is a little closer to us than those trees in the background that are a little more muted. Next, so I just go with the wash, and I'm trying to keep it even in terms of horizontally. Okay, I'm trying to. Here I messed up. I cut the corner on the house. I literally cut the corner, and yeah, just impatience, maybe lack of focus. These are all things I'm planning on. Like I said it a few times, I'm planning on being one of the best watercolor artists in the world. I know it's very arrogant to say, and it's also very ambitious, but I just have to put it out there, and I know that I can do it, and I don't care if it will take 10 years or 5 or 20. So I'm just gonna work really hard on improving, and I'm gonna do a lot more paintings off screen, and just people won't see. It will be for me. I'm gonna invent some more complicated exercises for myself, and I plan on really improving significantly in the next few months and years as well. Here I'm trying to correct my mistake, and it's just impossible because the wash is still wet. So what I'll have to do is, I dabbed some of it, and now I'm trying to paint around it. It's not really working, but anyway, yeah, this is exactly what I meant when I said on the next wash you can correct some things, and you will see how I alleviate it, at least in the next wash. So anyway, now I'm using magenta and chromium yellow to create this bright, beautiful orange that I like to use for roofs. Especially for roofs, I find that you have to, if you want to convey sun and brightness, bright atmosphere, you have to be really careful not to mute the reds, because right now it looks vibrant and it may end up being much less. Okay, so you sometimes don't know what will mute it or make it die, and it's just better, like with this mixture, I just use the two. There's not a drop of blue in there, okay? At least not deliberately, at least not intentionally. So anyway, now because I'm really unsure of what I'm doing, and I don't know what will come out of it, you see me now doing something I don't usually do. So first I take the cerulean. I accidentally took ultramarine, but now I'm taking the cerulean, and I plan on using that, as I said, for that house that's the center of attention, for its shadow and for its roof, okay, and for its windows in the next few washes. But the thing is that I didn't allow time for the roof on the left to dry, which is okay. You can merge some layers on the initial washes, but it's just not exactly the vision I had, and for some reason I did it anyway. So sometimes when you're on a downward spiral in your painting, it continues. So you see I'm trying to leave some gap, but even if I leave that gap, it just won't look good. So so there's no real use. It's just now a matter of like connect the washes and correct it later on. Lucky for me, this vibrant color doesn't have to be preserved for later washes, especially because it's going to be much darker. Okay, so it's okay if the red mixes into it, although again, I didn't really do it deliberately. It was a moment of just not thinking. So you can see why I have a lot of mixed feelings towards this painting as I go along. And frankly, I was sure that I recorded it, but I was sure it's not going to turn into a video. But I still want to, because it does show some level of perseverance. And I think that And by the way, I negative painted around the tree, but then I regretted it. Anyway, I think that there is a lot of respect and honor in not giving up on a painting and really pushing it through and trying to make the most out of it, because really the worst case scenario is that you're going to learn, and you're going to learn a lot from mess ups because they free you. Right now I feel, I'm a bit bummed that it didn't go the way I wanted. By the way, I added a bit of sepia there. I don't know if you caught it. So anyway, I'm a little bummed at this point, but on the other hand, I'm also relieved, very relieved, because like, what do I have to lose? This painting is a goner, in my opinion, at the moment of recording this. So I do think, like, what you see right now is literally me knowing this is not going to lead to nothing, but I'm continuing to work on it anyway. So I think there's a lot of respect in that, and I really respect artists that still push through. It's a very artistic quality sometimes to just give up in desperation and say, oh, it's not going the way I want it to. And it's just wrong, you're missing out on a lot of experience and a lot of learning. So yeah, and of course not everyone's like that, but some people definitely are. And so, yeah, just my 2 cents about this. Hopefully it helps people. So anyway, in this mixture I'm using a bit more, trying to do a little bit of a stronger mix, because this roof is stronger in the reference from what I recall. But I will just glaze on top of it because it's still not strong enough right now, of course. Well, not of course, because it's not necessarily, it can be enough. You never really know sometimes, but anyway, yeah. So this almost concludes the initial wash. The one thing we have to take care of is that cabin on the right, and this one needs to be worked on with a little more care because it's just closer to us. I'm mixing a bit of a darker mixture to use on it for it. I switched to a smaller brush. I don't remember even when I did it, but anyway, yeah. Again, using a bit of a warmer paint, a little stronger, just to send it a bit forward. Okay, I don't know exactly where it's gonna lead, but many times, careful planning until you start painting, and then you don't know what will happen. Okay, so sometimes you have to sort of hold on and let go at the same time. It's a challenge, but it's part of it. Now, if you look again at the reference, because I put it back on screen, you will see how this building has a bit of the color is pretty accurate. The color selection is pretty darn good, I would say. The cerulean blue really works here. Of course, it will be covered up with darker washes, but just to give you an idea. Now, here's the bottom part of that building in the background. The thing is, it's gonna be covered up by the trees in the foreground. But I'm still putting it in there because negative painting around darker things really isn't that smart of a decision, I find, with time. Depending on the situation, of course, sometimes it can be the right thing to do. So anyway, now I'm putting in again a darker wash on that left side, left wall. I don't know why I was really struggling here with the angles and all of that, just to get the lines the way I want them to be. Man, I really don't know. This whole painting was a big challenge, big challenge. Now I'm connecting this wash to the shadow under the roof, which is really important to avoid a super fragmented look. In the process, I didn't really nail the shape, so it's a bit... it made the roof look a bit crooked, but that's okay. Now the shadows for the chimneys, and as you noticed, as I mentioned, I just drew their shape. So now I'm filling it up with some shadows. There's this satellite dish that I also fill up with some shadows. Funny enough, I started recording the narration for this video in the airport, in the gate, waiting for the plane. But it was so quiet, but so full of people, that I just felt like I'm disturbing everyone. I just felt uncomfortable. So I recorded like 20 minutes and then decided to give up because I sounded like this, like I was whispering into the headphone. So I just thought it's too much. I just stopped. Anyway, now mixing again, now using again the darker mixture. Well, it's not significantly darker, it's just a little darker, only this time I added a little more magenta to it. The reason why I do it is just to keep some variety in the wash. Okay, the left side you can see the blue is more dominant, now on the right side the magenta was more dominant, and now in the area I'm painting right now, it's again a bit more blue. You want to vary it a bit. I read somewhere, someone actually explained how to vary, like literally every inch and a half or every 2 inches. He recommended you change a bit the mixture. I'm not that dogmatic about it. I don't really follow that kind of rule. But I do vary it as I see fit. And you know what? Sometimes I say that I'm not dogmatic about things and I'm not really following necessarily some kind of rule. And with time, I find that the rule can actually help and not restrict, and then I will adopt it. So there's a lot of things that change with experience, and I know that there's so much I don't know yet. And so yeah, a lot of things can change. But anyway, you see how this varying it a bit leads to a nice, just nice interest. And also because we're using a limited palette of 3, well, basically I'm using 5, but this whole painting is dominated by 3 primaries only. So we still get a relatively harmonious color combination, okay? It does look good eventually. So it's okay to add maybe 1 or 2 colors here and there just for effect. Now on to the cabin in the foreground. Here I messed up. The roof turned out really good, I think, but the rest is not so good. I really don't know why. Here I missed. I should have stopped. So I'm putting some clear water in my brush. As you'll see soon. I decided to go with it, and then I gave up. So I'll show you. Now I'm continuing this, but I still know I made a mistake. So now I regret it, and I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna continue with the wash the way I did. So you will see me wet the brush. I actually had to think about it. So I'm wetting this entire area, as you can see right now. Cleaning the brush, wiping it on the towel, and picking up that paint because I regretted it. In the beginning, I thought to myself, be wrong and strong, you know, just go with it and it's okay. And then I saw that it just doesn't give a good look. So anyway, so you can see you can lift. And by the way, this is a good example of lifting in the Legion paper. And as the review that I did shows, it's good for lifting. It can take lifting. It will let you lift. Unlike, I think, a lot of cold pressed paper, so you know, usually in hot pressed it's easier because the surface is smoother and they're just more suitable, generally speaking, for lifting. But this one excels at it from my experience with it so far. And I did do quite a few paintings on it by now. So now I'm mixing a very dark mixture. The thing is that the trees in the background, if you look at the reference again, and again, there will be a link in the description box, so apologies that I don't show it all throughout the video. But anyway, if you look at the reference, you will see that the trees are much darker. But the thing is, I didn't want to lose all of that wet and wet on top. So I just decided to add some darker patches. Now, this can be counterproductive or just against what I want to achieve. Because it puts you at risk of making the background too detailed and thus competing with the foreground. But I think I approached it quite gracefully, and you'll see what I mean. So what I'm doing is putting in some dark spots now, but I am blending. You'll see soon I'm softening the edges significantly, which makes it sort of blend into the already existing wash. And you will see now, just putting in that the darker pigment, and it's not necessarily darker, it's just a second glaze, so it appears darker. What I'm doing now is wetting the brush, clearing some of its dampness, and you see I'm trying to blend the edges of what I just added, okay? And again, the reason, so it doesn't compete with my foreground. And some may argue that it's still competing. You'll have to see the final results to really judge that, but I'm curious to know, so leave me a comment below with your opinion of what you think, if it competes with it or not. I'm considering not releasing a new video tomorrow because this one will be published so late, and I know that the moment I release a new one tomorrow, it will take away from this one. So just know that, and because I recorded the outro to this video in advance, I may say there, I'll see you again in another video tomorrow. Don't don't believe me. Tomorrow may not have a video. I know it hasn't happened in a while. It may happen this time. Okay, so apologies about that. I just want this video to get all the views it can. And if you're hearing me say this, it literally means you're watching the whole thing, and thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. So anyway, yeah, putting in some patches of darkness and then blending them in, trying to balance adding some darkness to the background with not stealing away all of the attention from the foreground. Okay, and again, remember that at this point I'm really experimenting because I lost basically confidence in this one. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I don't know if it's even worth all the hard work and effort. So being desperate sometimes helps. You're like, I gave up on it, so it's going to be good regardless. But anyway, yeah. So almost done here with the background. I had to get up for a moment, so sorry if there was a funky sound with the headphones. Anyway, this almost concludes the initial wash. Officially is done now. Kind of. Well, I did add some darker areas on top of the main structure, but the real darks are gonna come now in the next wash. Okay, so and this is my favorite part of any painting, the part that finally gives it some depth. Now, one more thing that I'm aware of at this point while making the painting is that the grass needs to be significantly darker, and this is one drawback of this primary combination, is that it can't achieve really dark values with the greens. Okay, it's one thing I noticed, because if you mix just the ultramarine and the chromium yellow, the more yellow you add, the lighter it becomes. The more blue you add, it loses its green, and so many times you will find that to get grass to look properly, especially if you want to keep it warm, you have to glaze. You just have to. There's no escape. And here you see I corrected the mistake from the previous wash because I didn't cut the corner over the corner this time. Just as a side note. But anyway, the one way to darken this, and you saw me do it in the church, rural, I hate that word because of my lack of accent. But anyway, in the rural church video, you saw me do that. You saw me making fairly dark greens, and the way I did it was by adding magenta. The magenta is the thing that helped darken them. But the problem with that is that when you add magenta, you lose the warmth. Well, technically speaking, you add warm, but the magenta is cool. So I don't know, it really depends on the way you view it. But for me, it just mutes the green and ruins it in this case. So in conclusion, if your grass is in the foreground, you may have some issues with this specific trio. This is what I'm what I'm trying to say. Okay, if your grass is in the foreground. If it's in the background, you can do what I did here, which is in the trees in the background, I added a lot of magenta to mute it, and that's the result, very dead green. Anyway, covering it up all the way to the bottom with that second wash, and now it's time to think how I want to continue. So I decided to put in some wet and wet here and there, just to add some interest, because I know this might be the last glaze of the grass. Well, actually, it's not gonna be. I'll tell you a secret right now. It's not gonna be, but I know that at this point I wasn't sure. So I did want to add some more interest here and there, really randomly. Not thinking about it too much. To me, this painting is already a lost cause in many ways. So yeah. Now you see, I used too much wet into the wet, which caused these ugly blossomings. The thing is, I will add another wash on top of it, which will almost completely correct it. Okay? So funny enough, this looks like one of the biggest mistakes so far, and it will look much better later on, trust me. But yeah, you can see how it was just an adventure of mistakes, really. So anyway, now I'm darkening in with yet another dark wash. Here it's very dominated by the magenta and ultramarine, but I will add a little more yellow to it later. Now I'm observing the reference. This is why I froze for a few minutes. It happens from time to time. Adding a little more blue and going over that wash. Now it will create a really cool contrast with the roof that is very yellowy, yellowy orange, and the left side of the structure that's fairly darker. And you see I'm just throwing in those details. Honestly, I think this should have been darker. And I don't put another wash on it, but yeah, just one more mistake to the collection. But funny enough, I really like the final result. But anyway, now I'm putting in the stronger shadows, but the thing is I will regret it and just darken the whole roof with sepia, as you will see soon, I think, or after this wash will dry. But anyway, yeah, still, I kind of went a little backwards on this one. So yeah, you can experiment and mess up, and everything's gonna be fine. And you will, like, the worst thing that will happen is that you'll actually learn some stuff. I feel like a broken record, so hopefully I'm not just repeating myself here, but yeah, you get it. Now for the windows, and this is an area you need to be careful in, because it's in the light, you can see all the details, it's the strongest contrast point of this entire painting. You just want to dedicate some attention to making it. I'm using fairly dry brush strokes here because I want to have as much accuracy as possible, and I want to use very dry paint. The wetter the paint is, the harder it is to control it. This is a topic for another video that I will do in a few days, I think. So yeah, just very interesting phenomenon. Now I'm picking up more cerulean for those blinds or shades, or I don't know how you'd call them exactly, but they are cerulean-ish, so I decided to use cerulean for them. And once this is dry, I will add some shadows under them. You'll see it will be really cool. And this is something that will make them pop. But this will happen in the very last wash, I think, almost near the end. Yeah. At this point, I'm done with most of the windows. I'm unsure of what I'm doing right now. Maybe I'm mixing for the tree, or maybe. Oh yeah, okay. So I'm trying to put in the tree and that's obstructing some of the left wall of the house. It wasn't really a must do at this point, but I still felt like the painting will benefit from it right now at this very instant, so I just did it. I think I wanted to just see how it works with the rest of the darks, so yeah. Now I'm trying to make it a little darker, close to the bottom, just to anchor it a bit to the ground. Shadows of objects, again, and I said it a few times, are much more important than the objects themselves, okay, so just as a side note. In any case, yes, now I'm continuing with mixing some darks that I'm going to use for the left side of the houses. This video is going to be really delayed, so again, really I apologize about that. In the US, usually I schedule them to around 5 p.m. New York time. I go by New York time. But this one I think will be maybe around 8 or 9, could be even later. So all you night owls, how do you say that, animals? Anyway, all of the night owls will get to watch it, and those of you who go to bed early will watch it tomorrow, hopefully. Yeah. So yeah, now I'm using much stronger, richer darks than on the left wall, which is funny because the contrast should be stronger on that wall on the left, but I guess I just learned from it because I knew that it's not dark enough. Moving on with that very same dark, sometimes you don't need to vary as much the second wash that's darker as much as you did the first because of watercolor's transparency. So right now I'm covering this shack here or whatever it is with the same dark color I used so far, but because there's another wash under it that was varied, it will come through still. Okay, so I find that if you vary the first wash, and then you vary the second wash, and then you vary the third wash, sometimes it can get a result you don't want necessarily. So if you vary the first wash, and then you keep the second one more even, sometimes it can lead to a cool result, because you glaze over it, some of the transparency of the watercolor shows through, and yeah. So now for the cabin at the very foreground. Now with this one, again, extra care. needs to be taken. I think I did a really good job with the roof. You'll see later on when I add the shingles and some of their texture. So yeah, I think I did a good job with the roof, but the walls themselves, I don't know, not sure about them so much. Felt like I could have read the shadows and lights much better than I did. Yeah, but it happens, it's okay. So yeah, just putting in a bit of a stronger pigment while it's wet because it's in the shadows. The funny thing is that I could do it after it dries here because it's in the foreground and because stronger contrasts will work, but I decided to do it wet and wet. Yeah, some shadow under the roof, a very light shadow under that other side of the roof, very thin because this part is hit by light pretty directly. Some shadow in the window, as you saw. Now I'm going to add probably a bit of separation between the two parts of the roof. There's the part on the right, that faces the light, and the part on the left that doesn't face the light. So I'm darkening that left part that doesn't face the light, and it feels a little darker. So I add just a bit more water and try to, yeah, just make the mixture less pigmented, less saturated, I guess. Yeah. And you can see how it creates this separation between the left and right parts of the house, of the cabin, whatever that is. So yeah, the roof, I did a good job, but you see also the negative painting for the first wash comes through, and you can see that it's not really, there is a weird white line between them. Very, I really, I really was impatient with those few initial washes, I guess. You pay for your mistakes, but also you learn from them, so yeah. I actually find in my experience that I do learn from my mistakes rather fast. I don't have too many repeating mistakes right now. I think the one thing I could really improve is my brush technique, just to have a little more control over my brush and just more attention to how I put my washes. But aside from that, my drawings are definitely accurate. My values are accurate. The one thing that I do want to improve in, yet again, is colors, because again I'm going through this time when I'm just using very light colors, very even colors, very harmonious, just triads, but I'm not trying to imitate reality still. And I do want to imitate reality to to a larger extent. Because I do want to get a more realistic result. Anyway, I didn't explain, but right now I put the shingles on just by putting these small curved lines. Hopefully it comes through well, and you see how it creates an effect of three-dimensionality. But back to the point I was just making, I feel like I'm now going through a stage of really experiencing a more harmonious use of paints, but ultimately what I would like to do is just to have maybe 6 primaries, warm and cool, every type of primary, and sort of mix more freely, if that makes any sense, and not just use 3, and try and get a little more of a realistic result. I'm still lacking in that X factor that really makes the result more realistic. It could be a matter of experience, it could be a matter of maybe even drawing more accurately, maybe the brushwork should be more accurate, maybe my values still aren't 100% on point. I'm sure they aren't, I'm sure it will improve with time. But the one thing I do know, and this is for anyone who's a bit frustrated with their progress, the one thing I do know is that quitting or giving up or taking a break, well, taking a break can work, but quitting doesn't. So I'm just keeping going. I make another painting and another painting. Even if I feel like it's just a downward spiral, I keep on going while trying to be smart about it, while trying to learn from my mistakes. But I never stop. And I got a comment on a video a few videos ago that told me that I should reach a certain level before I show the reference and paint from reference. A lot of people took the comment as pretty harsh, but I see the point, and I'm really not insulted or something like this by these comments. If something, I'm happy to get feedback. But anyway, a lot of you guys really stood up for me, so thank you for that. But the point I want to make is that no, I'm not going to wait until I'm at a specific level to publish these videos. A, because they really help people, and to show the reference, of course. A, because they really, really help people, and B, because most people in today's world are waiting for XYZ. That's most people, waiting for. And sometimes there's a valid reason to wait for something, and sometimes it's an excuse. So I know that I can share my progress freely, enjoy making these videos, actually helping people, and making paintings that are okay to good to maybe sometimes great. And I will improve by doing, and that's the point. You improve by doing, and if I would tell myself, well, I have to be at a certain level to make these videos, well, what is a certain level? You know, what is it? How do I measure it? How do I know I'm there? How do I know I'm there? Is it okay now for me to make a video? Is it okay now? Can I do it? Like, it just doesn't work that way. So again, I didn't take any offense, by the way, to the original comment. Really, I appreciate any kind of feedback as long as it's not hurtful. It was a bit harsh, but I really have no problem with it. And thank you for bringing that up, actually. But I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to continue making these, and I'm clearly communicating that this is something I'm still learning. You know, with the drawing part of this, I'm completely confident. I know that I'm accurate, that I'm doing a good job with the preparatory sketch as well. But with the painting, it's definitely something I'm still learning. So I hope I communicated freely. Okay. And I do want to hear your opinion about that, so leave a comment below. What do you think about this whole thing? Any of you who just, I don't know, saw the comment or kind of just thought about it? Or just the thing of being good enough to share something, you know, it's just a very interesting topic to me, I think. But anyway, yeah, I just want to thank all of you because your support is amazing. Whether you provide constructive criticism, whether you give compliments, which I get a lot, and I try not to let it influence me too much because I just know that I have so much to learn still. But anyway, yeah. This is actually really nearing the end. I'm just going over some of the roofs, making them a little bit darker, stronger. There is one roof that I will make stronger using more strong red. The one in the center, in the dead center of the painting. I don't know if it was the right decision or not, but you will see it in a few moments. And now I'm adding a suggestion for the shingles. Now, as you can see, you don't have to draw each shingle. I'm kind of drawing the lines, using fairly dark paint to make this, doing it on both sides, the side facing the light, the other side. You can be a little quicker on the side that's not facing the light. Yeah. Just wanted to get that impression of shingles, and you can see how the strong contrast on the right side of the cabin really helps to convey that. So anyway, yeah, now putting in that tree, very dry brush, okay, and I'm going to use an even drier paint for the tree in the very foreground, which I will soon get to. Sorry, it's been a long way today, so my voice is a little hoarse. Yeah, putting in the shadow for the tree, critical, really important. The tree is what connects it to the ground. The shadow is what connects it to the ground. Now I'm using this opportunity. I'm putting in the second tree, but I also will put some more darks into the shadows just under the roofs. I believe that will happen soon, and you will see just what a lovely effect it has on the shape of the houses. In a few moments, you'll see this. And the shadows are really, really flat, so you don't have to go too much detailed on them. Actually, it will be counterproductive if you go too detailed on them. Imagine that they're projected on the ground and they're very squashed. You see them at an angle. You don't want to have them too thick. Okay, so I'm using very thin shadows here because of the angle. If we would have a more of an above look, it would be maybe fat, more wide, more, you know. Different shadows, but in this case we don't need them. So now I'm mixing a very strong kind of neutral green, or just a dark color, because I'm gonna put in a blaze of grass, and again the paint you put now is affected by the layer under it, and so if I'm going to put this dark wash over, this very almost dry wash over green, it will look like a dark green, okay, because the color underneath it comes through. Just trying to give a little more attention to the foreground here, because again it's feedback that I rightfully receive again and again. So trying to give it a little more attention, and let me know what you think about the foreground specifically. When it's done, you will see there's a bit more details, but generally speaking, if there's something you think could have been improved to make it pop more, to make it more balanced, I'm really trying to improve here. Yeah. So the next few things we have to do is just to put that very dark tree in the right side on the foreground. Some more shadows, I believe, under the roof, and just some more details to make it interesting, which is what I'm doing now. I'm trying to dry brush some more texture to the ground. I'm trying to use some of the paper's texture, as you can see. Using a very dry brush and pressing hard against the paper. Trying again to add more paint but keep it dry, which can be a challenge sometimes, but you can see here putting in those random streaks of paint, and I think this actually really helped to bring some of it to the front. So hopefully this improved things or gave it a little texture. I don't feel the grass is overworked here, which makes me really pleased, because it is so easy to overwork it. I feel like it's pretty balanced. And I think this is almost it for those dry brush streaks. Maybe a little more. Probably not. Probably that's it. I don't want to overdo it. Yeah, just a few more. And the places that have some of the texture of the paper showing really are the magical areas here. You can see. Just doing some more some darker streaks here. Forgot how to talk. Sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah, and I'm close to overdoing it, so hopefully I will stop soon. Come on, man, stop soon. Yeah, okay. So now I'm mixing a larger wash, but still very thick. Can't even, I don't know if I can even call it a wash at this point, because again it's very thick paint. But yeah, taking some more yellow, some more red, some more of the blue, and starting to lay down those branches. Again, really dry brush. Unfortunately, I didn't have a rigger brush at the time, so which could be a good thing, because I think the branches should have been thick, but maybe a rigger brush would have allowed me a little more detailed work. Anyway, I'm dropping in some branches specifically to cut some of the roof of that cabin or small structure, because I want that contrast. I want that very dark in the foreground and a little lighter in the background. I know I didn't get the perfect impression, and this is my fault actually, because the composition of that tree could have been better. This is something I could have just moved some stuff around and have it be fully in the frame, which would make it just look much better. Sorry about the loss of focus from time to time. Anyway, what I could have done is, maybe if you count from the right, you have 1 that's the cabin, 2 that's the shack in the distance. I could have maybe dumped that shack, moved the cabin to the left, and then put the tree well inside the frame, which would have made it a little better. So I'm not really worried that I didn't get the composition I wanted, and maybe the foreground isn't as much as I wanted, but notice what I'm doing. I'm putting in a lot of mental energy into the foreground. So just the fact I'm putting that mental energy makes me do a better job at it, okay? Or at least learn more from it, and not just do it as an afterthought. Okay, so notice what I'm doing here. I'm not judging myself for the result, because I did my best, I think. But I am understanding and taking some lessons from this. Okay, I'm learning things from this, and I'm putting a lot of deliberate focus on that. Just put in some of the shadows for the tree, and I think soon this will be done. This is really some of the final details here. Just maybe adding more color to that roof and the back that I told you about. But anyway, I'm using really dark strokes for this one. Maybe some more leaves, some more strengthening some of the branches here. Trying not to overwork it, but still put in enough of it so that it's clear. Yeah, and I know it's not the best looking tree, but it still conveys some look of something in the foreground. Sorry about the weird light changes. The light conditions were a bit weird, so you can see it moves from yellow to kind of bluish. Anyway, yeah, this is a really important part. So here I'm adding the shadows under the blinds, or the sort of doors of the windows, the flip-flap doors. And this is what will make them pop and what will lead to the strong, nice contrast we are looking for in an area that's the center of attention, that we expect from a center of attention. Strengthening some of the shadows as well on the roof itself, because again, it's the most interesting, I think, point of this part of this painting. I'm really curious to know how other people view this painting, because we built them slowly, we lose the objectiveness of, yeah, it's just very subjective to me looking at it. Well, it's subjective for everyone, but just the way I see it is different than you, so I'm curious to know how other people see this one. Anyway, putting in some of the darks in the darks, as I mentioned earlier. And these aren't always necessary, but in this case I felt it would be beneficial to put some. And also even a bit details, like a hint at windows and something like this. Really helps sometimes to create a look of three-dimensionality, to make the roof more believable, to put an emphasis on the shadow it casts on the wall under it. You saw this type of thing also in the old, well, not that old, but painting I did in my moleskin of that another relaxing village scene. I really like villages, and the villages in Germany and Austria and all of those areas, just beautiful. Love them. So anyway, yeah, now I'm adding that strong red. Was it a mistake? Was it the right decision? I don't know. I felt like it will help connect the two centers of interest, which is the cabin on the right, the structure on the left. Anyway, this is done. So friends, here's the final result. I hope you enjoyed this one. Really, as I said, this really challenged me in so many ways, and it's not necessarily the scene that's challenging and I did the proper preparation. It's just that some days things don't work out exactly the way you want them to. I felt it at the moment I started putting this part of the wash with the foliage in the background. I knew it. But the good thing that I do take from this is the way I approach the things that are closer to us in the foreground. I tried making them more detailed based on the feedback I got from you. So this tree was actually in the picture, and so I just wanted to put it in there, and I figured it would be a good way to pull some attention to the foreground. Just the grass is done more dryly, there's a shadow hinted for this tree. So hopefully things do connect together. The values actually could have been better, but anyway, yeah, this is it. I'm just pleased with it because I kept going. So even though it's not perfect, I kept going. I didn't give up on it, and in the past I would definitely give up in a few points here, but this time I was like, we're doing this, and this is, I think, what you get from experience, just the confidence of being able to pull this together. Okay, so anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this full demo. Let me know what you think in a comment below, and I will see you again in another video really soon.